This is Dante Williams, and you watching
Dante's
Boxing Nation.
This is Showtime Sean Portland.
Filipino Flash, Jesse Burns.
This is Al Bernstein. You're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
Hi, I'm Sugar Ray.
Chick Shape.
Sergio the last name more.
Dante's Boxing Nation. Boom, 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 boom.
Yo, this is Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder.
My name is Gennady Golovkin.
And you're watching
Dante's Boxing Nation.
Hi, this is Julian Jackson, and this is Dante Boxing Nation.
This is Julia Jackson, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation. All right. Now, Bob, Manny Pacquiao recently said he has no preference on his next opponent, but clearly Crawford is going to ask for a lot less money. Does that give him more of a chance of getting that big fight with Pacquiao?
That depends. And Manny saying he has no preference on his next opponent, I don't think that's correct. Manny said to me that he wants to fight the best available guy. That's why he's looking at tape. And if he thinks Crawford is the best guy, the best challenge, that's who he would want to fight in his next fight.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Well, I tell you, the whole truth always has a funny way of breaking free, doesn't it? I mean, you could lock the whole truth up in a cell and throw away the key, and the truth will always break free. It may not always be when you want it to, but it always breaks free. You know, guys, I just recently had one of the best fighters in the junior welterweight division, Mauricio Herrera, on my radio show this week. As Mauricio Herrera, who's known for his toughness, he actually surprised everyone and turned down the Terrence Crawford fight. So I wanted to get his take on why he turned down this fight, right? Now, in the interview that I did with Herrera, he said that they were just giving him little money, or they were just offering him very little money to get in the ring with Terrence Crawford. But then on top of him saying that, then he turned around and he tried to discredit Terrence Crawford by basically saying that Terrence Crawford, you know, he hasn't done anything, he hasn't fought anyone. Now, Bob Arum just recently did an interview, and he was asked the question, why is Terrence Crawford fighting Hank Lundy? And Bob Arum, in frustration, basically said, and I quote, well, when this thing straightens out and people realize that the money is the money, they're going to fight him. These people now are so unrealistic about the money when it comes to fighting a fighter of Crawford's ability, of Golovkin's, it's ridiculous, end quote. The key words are unrealistic and ridiculous. This is what Bob Arum is saying, okay? So in other words, these fighters are basically saying that Terrence Crawford is way too goddamn good. And if I'm gonna lose, you're gonna have to give me severance pay, okay? Because this ain't no regular ordinary fight. We're talking about Terrence Crawford. According to Bob Arum, this is what these boxers are saying. Not only that, but what I also found out in this article is Bob Arum, he also admitted that not only that Mauricio Herrera turned down a Terrence Crawford fight, but the Siberian Rocky, which is his nickname, Ruslan Provonikov, also turned down this fight. You know, this is pretty interesting because I recently did an interview with a very well-known cut man by the name of Todd Harlib. He's very well connected, knows a lot of people, works with almost everyone in the boxing industry. And he was basically throwing out his 2 cents. And I gotta be straight up, you know, he kind of started going down that decaf path because he's all of a sudden out of nowhere, he starts saying that he believes that Terrence Crawford is avoiding fighters with power, like a Ruslan Provodnikov. And when he said that, as soon as he said that, I thought it sounded ridiculous. And I said, first of all, I don't think Ruslan Provodnikov would even take a Terrence Crawford fight. And someone like Terrence Crawford would love a flat-footed, easy-to-hit type of opponent like Ruslan Provonikov. I personally believe Terrence Crawford, he would look his best against someone like that and most likely knock out Ruslan in a very impressive fashion. Okay? So I didn't say that last part, but this is pretty much what I said to Todd when he was telling me this. And this is before I actually knew that Ruslan Provodnikov was even offered a Crawford fight. So everything that I had said to Todd about Ruslan Provodnikov not being interested in fighting a Terrence Crawford turned out to be 100% accurate. By the way, if you guys missed that interview and you want to watch it, you can click on the little red box in the left top hand corner right there. So it's more than obvious, and don't get me wrong, I understand where fighters like Herrera and Ruslan are coming from, because that damn Terrence Crawford is a beast. He's a monster, okay? And if I was trying to do anything that I possibly could do to prevent myself from losing, yeah, I would avoid Crawford too, right? If I'm just trying to stay on the path of winning, and I know that if I fight Crawford, it may not go the way I want it to go, yeah, I would avoid him too. But this is not the way you're supposed to think if you think that you're the best. That's the way you're supposed to think if you acknowledge that you're not the best and you're just doing this as a full-time job and you're just trying to pay the bills. You don't want to deal with that type of setback. Now, when it comes to the Al Haymon detractors, this is when I ask you the question right now. When Bob Arum says these fighters are asking for an unrealistic amount of money, and damn near it's ridiculous that they're even asking for this type of money, this is where I ask you guys, at least you decafs who like to blame everything on Al Haymon, I ask you, is Bob Arum trying to cheat these fighters? Is he trying to rob these fighters? Or is it just simply Mauricio Herrera and Ruslan Provodnikov? They realize how dangerous Crawford is. And Crawford is probably the most difficult fight to actually win. Which one is it? Do you blame this on Bob Arum trying to rob fighters? Or is this just a simple case of too much talent when it comes to Terrence Crawford? Which one makes more sense? I think anyone with half a brain would say it makes more sense that Terrence Crawford may just be too much of a damn threat. And fighters are asking for severance pay if they're going to go in there with this guy, right? Now, something else I noticed when Mauricio Herrera, when he was on the show, I noticed he said, Terrence Crawford ain't gonna pay me nothing. Notice he said Terrence Crawford and he didn't say Bob Arum. Isn't that interesting? Because when it comes to Al Haymon, the detractors are often trying to blame him for everything, right? But when it comes to not getting enough money, it's not Bob Arum's fault, it's Terrence Crawford's fault. As if Terrence Crawford is not only the fighter, but he's the manager, he's the promoter, he's everything. But yet when it comes to Bob Arum, people complain about Terrence Crawford fighting against Hank Lundy, but notice they're not blaming the promoter. They're not saying this promoter puts on mismatches. But when it comes to Al Haymon, it's mismatch this, mismatch that. Do you guys see the double standard? Ironic, right? I know. Manny Pacquiao, Ruslan Provodnikov, Mauricio Herrera, they all turned down Terrence Crawford. Who do you blame? You blame Terrence Crawford, right? Not the promoter, not the three fighters that turned down the fight. You blame it on the fighter on the coincidental list. Oh yeah, that makes all the sense in the world, doesn't it? Now, one thing I will say in defense of Mauricio Herrera, he did say in the radio show, or on the radio show, and I know action speaks louder than words, but he said that after he fights Ruslan, then he'll be willing to fight Crawford, because he says then he can ask for more money if he comes to the table after beating Herrera Provodnikov a second time. We'll see what happens. But guys, at the end of the day, this is prize fighting. And if you beat the most dangerous guy in the division, you beat the champion, you're going to be worth way more money. That's just the way it works. For example, there's a fighter by the name of Adrian Granados who just pulled off a huge upset and knocked out the undefeated Amir Imam, right? Because he won that fight and took that risk, now his next fight, he's most likely going to get paid more than he's ever gotten paid before, because he has that huge win on his resume. You see how it works? No different than Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson. He probably got crumbs as a Mike Tyson opponent, but he knocked out Mike Tyson, and then he got the Evander Holyfield fight. And he made $1 zillion in that fight. That's how prize fighting works. So if Mauricio Herrera had the confidence to beat Terrence Crawford, it would have been worth the risk. Another fighter I want to talk about on this video in the junior welterweight division is Viktor Postol. You know, when Postol knocked out Lucas Matisse and forced him to quit, I said to you guys, this is somewhat of a mini super fight in the junior welterweight division. Crawford versus Postol. That is the best fight that can be made in the junior welterweight division, outside of like an Adrian Broner. Speaking of Adrian Broner, he, along with Pacquiao's advisor, was pursuing a Manny Pacquiao fight, which would have been huge. Now that's interesting because I actually asked Bob Arum, I said, since Al Haymon is signing so many fighters, wouldn't it be beneficial for you guys to work together for the betterment of the sport? And his response was simply one word, and that was no, and then he walked away. Now, and I'm not saying you should dislike anyone, okay? But I find it unbelievable that these fans have the audacity to discredit Al Haymon and blame him on everything when you have someone like Bob Arum who flat out says even for the betterment of the sport, he is not willing to unite to make some of the big fights in the sport of boxing. I mean, even Golden Boy's matchmaker Eric Gomez told me that he's even willing, or I should say they're even willing to work with Al Haymon to make some of these fights. So that says a lot right there. That says a lot right there. But going back to Viktor Postol, I said that that's the fight that I wanted to see, and I truly believe that that fight is going to happen in the future. I want to ask Bob Arum about that fight because I'm not really sure who's promoting Viktor Postol. So I want to ask Bob Arum about that. Obviously, we know that when it comes to Bob Arum, he likes to keep things in-house. I believe Lucas Matisse is with Golden Boy, and he got knocked out by Viktor Postol. So I don't know who Viktor Postol is working with. But like I said, I look forward to asking Bob Arum about that fight. So for now, that's pretty much all I got. I'm on to the next one.